It was 4 seconds past 9 p.m. at Cape Canaveral, and the whole area was just dead silent. Suddenly, a giant orange fireball just swallowed the entire launch pad. Jeff Bezos' dream project, the New Glenn rocket, turned into a massive bomb before it even left the ground. The craziest part is, the rocket wasn't even supposed to fly yet. It was literally bolted to the floor. This wasn't just some random accident. Engineers actually call this a static fire failure. But why do these rockets, with all their expensive tech end up exploding on the ground instead of going to space? Believe it or not, what we're seeing isn't new. A secret report from 1959 already spelled out exactly why this happens. Today, we're going to solve the mystery of why Blue Origin's rocket actually erupted like a volcano that day. To understand what happened, we need to head back from modern-day Florida to the days of the Cold War. In 1959, an Air Force study shared some pretty scary facts about these static rocket engine cracks. It said that every time a rocket engine is fired for the first time, it's basically a calculated risk, meaning the engineers knew there was a better chance of it exploding on the pad than actually flying. What happened to Blue Origin's New Glenn is exactly what Army researchers predicted nearly 70 years ago. When that engine starts, thousands of pounds of propellant start burning in just a few milliseconds. But if the liquid oxygen or methane doesn't hit the right spot at the right time, well, game over. In the New Glenn case, a cryogenic leak apparently froze the entire system in just 1 second. And that frozen hydraulic line is what turned the rocket into a 100,000-pound bomb. To be careful, honestly, I don't really know why modern metal alloys still fail against the same old problems from 1959. Maybe the laws of physics don't really change just because a billionaire has deep pockets. So, if you think building a rocket means it'll just fly, no. Actually, fighting the ground is the real challenge. All these big companies spending billions on rockets, did they just forget the data from Project PYRO? That 1968 Project PYRO report clearly stated how much TNT equivalents liquid propellant could actually have. Basically, it measures how many TNT bombs worth of energy would blow up if that fuel tank goes. When New Glenn erupted, you could see that orange glow in the sky all the way from South Carolina. Just think about it. How bad does an explosion have to be to see it clearly from 100 miles away? People living on Florida's Space Coast literally felt their house windows rattling. It's like relaxing at Cocoa Beach and suddenly feeling an earthquake hit. Some folks thought it was a huge meteor strike, but the truth was the total destruction at Launch Complex 36. Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos just brushed it off as an anomaly or a glitch. But the declassified data shows that liquid rockets are way more likely to fail than solid ones, because liquid engines have so many moving parts, and if even one thing leaks, you're in trouble. Solid motors might have less control, but at least they don't turn into random fireballs before they fly. Project PYRO ran over 270 tests just to understand how these explosions happen. They found that when liquid hydrogen and oxygen mix the wrong way, the destruction is worse than a normal bomb. The New Glenn rocket was supposed to carry Amazon LEO satellites into orbit next month, but right before launch, while they were warming up the engines, a leak was detected somewhere. From what I can tell, that leak probably happened because of an old crack or a valve issue. When you get 2000 psi of pressure inside an engine, a tiny bolt can act like a cannonball. There's a really eerie line in the old ETF report. It says that during an explosion, even those massive test cell walls fall apart like a deck of cards. So, you can easily guess what happens to a launch pad out in the open. The funny thing is, this isn't the first setback for Blue Origin. Their second stage engine had similar problems in an earlier mission too. The FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, kept them grounded for about a week. Right after they got permission to fly again, this massive explosion happened just a few days later. It's a huge lesson for engineers is that spaceflight really doesn't forgive mistakes. The billionaire space race might look glamorous, but behind it is a gritty fight with old school physics. A fight that started in those dusty laboratories in Tullahoma or Huntsville. There's a chart in that 1959 Aerojet General report that'll honestly give you chills. It shows exactly how much fuel leak it takes to turn the whole facility into dust. The New Glenn explosion lines up perfectly with those old calculations. Surprisingly, scientists don't really call these failures because they have sensors inside that keep sending data until the very last second before the blast. That data tells them exactly what they need to change when they build the next rocket. Basically, one rocket burns so the next one can actually work in space. It's like trial and error, but here, each error costs a few $1,000,000. Average American taxpayers might wonder if their tax dollars are just being spent on lighting fireworks. But private companies like Blue Origin are actually using their own funds for these experiments. NASA is now counting on this New Glenn rocket for Artemis III, or the 2027 mission to the moon. If they can't find the cause of this explosion, the dream of going back to the moon might get pushed back a few years. Elon Musk even tweeted about it, saying that building rockets is really hard. Elon's probably right, because a rocket sitting on the ground is basically just a sleeping giant. When SpaceX's Starship blew up on the ground the first few times, Elon didn't just give up. Bezos also said they'll build and fly again, because that's just how space exploration works. But our question is, are we actually learning from old science, or are we just making the same old mistakes? Are cryogenic leaks or frozen hydraulic lines really such complex problems that we haven't solved them in 70 years? Maybe rocket science is just a fight against the unknown, where a tiny mistake is the final word. While those flames were melting the towers at Launch Complex 36, the engineers were probably just staring at their data screens. That data is exactly where the seeds of future success are hidden. When the next rocket hits the pad, you bet everyone's going to remember that frozen hydraulic line, because in space research, you usually only get one shot to mess up. What do you think? Is a rocket exploding on the ground actually part of success, or just a failure? Let me know in the comments, because science is all about asking questions and finding answers. Thanks for sticking with Science Dissect. I'll see you in the next mystery investigation.